चारवित परिचित परिज्ञानम समर्थो धीर मानसः. It says, एक दूत को ईर्ष्या से रहित, बुद्धिमान, बातचीत की कला में निपुण, दूसरों के मन की बात को भांप लेने वाला और धैर्यवान होना चाहिए. और आज हमारे साथ इस तरह के दो लोग मौजूद हैं, Mr. Syed Akbaruddin as well as Mr. Raghvendra Singh. Could we have a big round of applause for our speaker as well as moderator? Today we'll have a session on how POK was created, a revelation. Is a conversation that revisits a critical chapter of subcontinent's history, one that continues to influence diplomacy, policy, and public discourse. We are honored to welcome Raghvendra Singh, a senior scholar and former civil servant with over 42 years of experience in the government of India. He has served across key ministries including External Affairs, Finance, Home Affairs, Culture and Textiles, and has held several distinguished academic and institutional leadership. These include Director General of the National Archives of India, Director of the Nehru Memorial Museum and Library, Vice Chancellor of the National Museum Institute, and Director General of the National Library. Sir, I welcome you on the dais, please. Can we have a big round of applause? Internationally, he served as director of the Indian Cultural Center in Berlin, overseeing cultural exchanges across mainland Europe. He has also led major national initiatives in the preservation and restoration of India's heritage, including serving as CEO for the Government of India's program on development of museums and cultural spaces, and as Director General of the National Museum. Currently, he is a senior fellow at the Vivekanand International Foundation, one of India's leading think tanks. A graduate in history from Hindu College, University of Delhi, he also holds an MA in Modern Indian History from the same institution. His work is rooted in archival research, institutional memory, and historical clarity. Joining him in the conversation is Syed Akbaruddin, former ambassador and one of India's most recognizable diplomatic voices. Ambassador Akbaruddin is the founding dean of the Kautilya School of Public Policy and a distinguished former diplomat with over 3 decades of service. He served as India's permanent representative to the United Nations until his retirement in 2020 and was the official spokesperson of the Ministry of External Affairs from 2012 to 2025. He also held key assignments at the International Atomic Energy Agency in Vienna and earlier diplomatic postings in Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and the United Nations mission in New York. Since retirement, he has remained an active and respected commentator on global public policy and international affairs. Sir, I welcome you on the dais with a big round of applause. He holds a master's degree in international relations from Australian National University and brings to his session a rare blend of diplomatic practice and policy interpretation. हम कॉन्वर्सेशन को शुरू करें उससे पहले एक और पंक्ति है जो मैंने रामायणा से ली है. हितम मितम च सारम या वचोस यस्य सह पंडितः. Hitam, who's beneficial, mitam, who speaks in measured tone, and saram, who speaks meaningfully. Every word carries the weight of truth, logic, and purpose. हनुमान जी के कूटनीतिक कौशल पर यह पंक्ति उनका साक्षात प्रमाण है कि वे एक बहुत ही बेहतर राजदूत थे. I now request Mr. Raghvendra Singh and Mr. Akbaruddin to please start the conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Um, I'm the diplomat and he's the civil servant. But he's the person who's written the book on diplomacy. So let me start with that, Raghvendra. Tell me, um, you have been a distinguished civil servant. You've headed two big ministries, culture, textiles. Yet, both your books, the first one was on, I think, Northwest Frontier Province, Afghanistan related. And this one that you write now is on a forgotten part of India, Pakistan occupied Kashmir. So tell me, what is drawing you to these issues outside India's boundaries?
You know, a diplomat is also a civil servant to start with. so, so both of us are civil servants. Secondly, I don't think so there's anything distinguished about my being a civil servant. I'm a student of history. After having served a while, actually, being in the service, um, um, three, four things. One is that I was always in touch with my subject. I'm a student of modern Indian history. So that I was. Then I went into your part of the South Block for some years and worked for over a decade with Jaswant Singh. And while doing that, I actually did the first draft of his book on Jinnah. Uh, I didn't get a joint authorship though, but I did. Uh, that in retrospect, I don't know, he lost his membership to the BJP, but that's besides. Um, so that kind of taught me the rigors of, sort of sculpting a book. And thereafter, I went for a trip to Baluchistan, to Las Bela, to Hinglaj, for a trip with him. And then I came back and started looking for material on Baluchistan. And in the process, I came across a lot of material on Northwest Frontier. So that's how Northwest Frontier happened. And about POK, it's not really a diplomatic story. It's essentially history, and it's based on the documents which I have accessed. And to my mind, I don't know, I may be ignorant of it, but to my mind, I don't think so they've been accessed till yet. So when I got hold of those documents, I obviously when I read them, they threw an absolutely fresh light. So it's a different narrative, but completely based on documentary evidences. So I thought I must do this. Now, this book actually is just the first part of a trilogy. My publishers, Speaking Tiger, told me that, look, if you come out with 3 volumes at the same time, Raghvendra, it's not going to sell. So you must do one at a time and bring it out as a self-contained book. And even the second one should follow from the first, but close, and so that the reader doesn't feel as if he's been short shifted. So that's how.
Got it. So, like first love, he hasn't forgotten his love for history. Being a student of history, he's continued to keep engaged with that all through his life. So, all of you remember, first love never goes off. That said, let's move on to something more. So, your book packs a lot, actually. It's about military history, about the military dimensions of the conflict in Pakistan occupied Kashmir. It also talks about the politics of that period, and then it then veers to New York and it talks about the diplomacy. So there are three aspects. It's a lot to cover, very impressive. That said, tell us, what is it that you found politics? Was it the military? Or was it the diplomatic aspects? What was the most striking thing which you hadn't thought of when you were starting your research that you found there, so that all of us can understand, oh, yeah, this is something new. That's what struck you when you were doing your research.
So the first thing which struck me was the initiation into international politics as far as India is concerned. Um, and India was a complete novice at the time when we became independent, and we learnt our lessons the hard way. Fortunately for Pakistan, or I don't know, unfortunately for Pakistan, whatever it is, they learned their lessons too, and they are very consistent with it right from the inception. Uh, so, 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 so the United Nations bit, which you just asked me about, uh, has been actually written about. It's been written about by Ambassador Chandrasekhar Das Gupta. It's also written by on it. Prem Shankar Jha is sort of written on it. Nurani is written on it, but not in the kind of detail, perhaps, which I thought I would sort of put it out in this book. Um, so there are lots of shadowy figures about which perhaps most Indians haven't heard of. Even I hadn't heard of those people. Uh, Secondly, the politics, which you mentioned. So the politics bit, I get a feeling after having done the book that no matter how much we talk about uh, Gandhi, Nehru, Jinnah, Liaquat, Patel, but when you see what was transpiring, who were the main actors, and who was sort of pulling the strings from behind the curtain, then an entirely different picture seems to emerge. Because what they write to each other, say for example, if the High Commissioner of Britain in Karachi is writing to the Commonwealth Relations Office or to the British delegation, or what Senator Austin in the UN is talking about as far as the Americans are concerned, then you get a feeling that what we were doing here sort of is not as prominent or not as preponderant as we make that out to be. Of course, there are reasons for it. And I'm not for a second saying that the way we had conducted our politics or our policies was not in the national interest. No, I'm not saying that at all. As far as the military part of it is concerned, I find that there are a lot of questions which are not answered. Even if you read the military history of that time, most of it I find is and has to be subjective. So that being subjective, there are many questions that are left unanswered. Some of them, which of course get answered by through these documents, is the fact that when in the December month of 1947, the whole thing was leading up to the India making a reference to the United Nations. Similar was the case in December of 1948, when the British and the Americans were cranking up pressure and building up heat so that India gets, number one, to make a reference there, and number two, to enter a ceasefire.
Got it. You've sort of stimulated all our interest by saying they were shadowy characters. You know, the Indian mind always wants conspiracy, sazish hai. So tell us a little bit about these shadowy characters. I mean, we know all the role of the big players, but tell us or introduce us to some shadowy character who has not been focused on generally, but you've pinned onto him and he has emerged as a major actor in this.
So the first one I describe in my book is a major called Major Cranston. Now, Major Cranston is a person who is obviously a British official, and he is moving around the time when the invasion was taking place. Meaning, in the month of October, he is one day in Karachi, the other day in Srinagar, the third day in Delhi, the fourth day in Lahore, Rawalpindi, and being a major, he is meeting all the top officials and the top leadership, be it of India or Pakistan or the Britishers. And he's obviously filing in reports. And the British, of course, are masters of obfuscation. So, you know, ostensible reasons are found for him to go from one place to the other and from the second. But then, you see, somewhere or the other, you see, a sentence or two gives the whole thing away, meaning thereby that if he's gone there to oversee the British evacuation, suddenly you find that there are no Britishers who are getting evacuated. Or for that matter, there's no need for the British to get evacuated because the whole, rage from the British, focused on the British, has shifted now towards the rage towards either Indians or towards the Muslims in Pakistan. So he's one. Then there is another chap called Richard Simmons. Now, Simmons is a guy who belongs to one small organization called the Friends of India Unit. And he is actually picked up from Calcutta, brought to Delhi. He is a friend and a colleague of Horace Alexander, who is a Gandhian. And when you see the role these two guys have played, it's impossible to think that even Gandhi befriended them, or either sort of they hoodwinked him, and they are supplying all kinds of information. And Simmons, in particular, actually becomes part of the UN Commission. You see, when the UN Commission for India and Pakistan is formed, and he is basically one person who is informing the Americans and the British about what's going on there. And he becomes an informer. And of course, the villain of the piece is Noel Baker, as we all know. But Graffiti Smith, Simon, Sir Terence, and of course, Roger Bacon and Gilgit. Gilgit is, of course, another story which I think you should ask me about, because I sort of that's going to be another book apart from this. So that's
Good. So if I listen to you, you've named a series of these shadowy characters. There's a commonality in all of them. None of them is a Pakistani or an Indian. So are you telling me it's the British who are the villain of the piece rather than, what we normally think are somebody on our side or on their side, etc.? To me, it looks like these shadowy characters have a larger role. Maybe if you can highlight your thesis that, yes, there was a so-called Videshi hath or a foreign hand. We've seen that in Lagan, but you're saying that it's now in the POK too.
No, it's something like this. You see, any officer or anyone for that matter, whether it's the political leadership, they work in their national interest, don't they? I mean, we all work in our national interest. So, so therefore, to me, and of course, the British bureaucracy was tested by fire. I mean, there was Second World War, and they were all over the place. Their learning and their experience was far more than what our experience was, or the Pakistani. I mean, we were all born out of the same womb. I personally think that if you are a nationalist and your national interest comes first and last, therefore you will only work for your own sake. I mean, to think that Mountbatten was a friend of Nehru's, and a kind of impression or a narrative built, especially in Pakistan, that he was a friend of Nehru's, and therefore whatever happened, partition and post-partition, is absolutely bunkum. I mean, in this book, he comes out as a treasonous character. I mean, he's writing such things, and knowing fully well as to what the Britishers have planned for us in the United Nations. He's privy to it. Rather, he is mandated to see that the whole thing leads up to that. And the certain acts whereby he tries and mollifies Nehru or Patel or some such other people or Congress is completely disingenuous. Similarly, these people, uh, they, the Cold War shadows had started to lengthen, and and America had actually realized that it's better to give Britain the lead in South Asia on their behalf, and therefore Britain took the lead, and America kind of stayed back. But it was basically the Americans who were driving the whole, show, game, whatever you choose to call it.
So if you think that it's the British and Americans who've played a role behind the scenes and pushed India and Pakistan into this situation, do you also think that one of the biggest foreign policy mistakes we made was to take this thing to the United Nations at all?
No, it's not all that simple. It's very easy to criticize Nehru that Patel was against it, and Nehru was for it, and Nehru made a mistake. No, I mean, when you see the way things actually build up over there, despite the kind of pressures which was built, and my book actually stops around the end of January 1948. Second week of February 1948. That's the time when the Indian delegation actually comes back from the United Nations. So we have been able to withstand that pressure despite the fact that we are not sort of being led. It's very easy, no? I mean, it's very easy if the main powers that be in the Security Council are with you. So when you say Pakistan finds itself in the kind of situation it found itself in, no, it was a win-win situation for Pakistan. I mean, despite the fact that Jammu and Kashmir acceded to India, you see, more than half of Jammu and Kashmir went to them, and a lot of it went to them in the initial phase, and it remained so. Some of it we could salvage, but not everything. And why the whole thing went to Pakistan, the military aspects of it, why Kashmir Valley was given priority over Jammu, why that kind of research is not done to find out why we stopped at Uri and not go beyond. I mean, a simplistic answer is that Sheikh Abdullah's interest didn't go beyond that, because all the Muslims beyond Uri were not in his favor. And in any case, in Jammu, they were against him. So why would he want to do that? But you see, when you see, from a broader perspective, then you have to question what was happening in Jammu. Why did we not place the forces in Jammu? And the thing is that the Indian leadership was fully aware, mindful of the urgency, and the Jammu Kashmir Darbar was pleading with the Indian leadership that you please place forces around Jammu so that when it comes to the crux, then at least you'll be immediately able to. But the thing is, the Indian leadership took the whole situation, leveraging, bargaining, to the, it was like a one-day cricket match where it's being decided on the last ball. Why take it there? I mean, imagine on the 26th of October, when Meherchand Mahajan comes to Delhi to discuss that, okay, you send the forces. There is Sheikh Abdullah in the other room overhearing the conversation. This kind of a parlay where someone else is overhearing the conversation. don't understand. Then on 26th of October, there is no one of any consequence in terms of authority, whether Indian or Jammu Kashmir, in Srinagar. What would happen if the Kabilis came in? Would Srinagar suffer the same fate which Baramulla suffered? So these are questions which must be raised, for which answers must be found. Why Bhimbar, Kotli, Jhangad, De Batala, Rajouri, Mirpur, one by one they kept on falling. Punch, the whole of Punch had gone. It's just that the town was there. So, all these military history when we talk about, that kind of a research I think is also needed, which last 70, 75 years I had expected that it would happen. Gilgit, one third of Jammu and Kashmir territory silently passes into, the Pakistani basket. Nehru, who would write profusely on all things concerned, you see his selected works, has hardly one or two references which he makes on one third of our territory, Baluchistan, Northwest Frontier. So when you talk of partition as a whole, then this two-nation doctrine also needs to be explained.
Got it. One last thing before I open it to everybody else to question it, because you've raised a lot of things. So tell us, this is of course history now, but from your understanding of that situation, what is it that we can take away today and say, okay, these are the three big things that went wrong or went right there. Let's say two big things which went right there and two big things which didn't go right, and we need to, as students or people who understand history, understand and will be helpful for us today, because we have to learn from history, not only just read history. So for all these young people sitting there, maybe that's what they need to take home from this. Right, there were two things which went right, two things which went wrong, or maybe three things which went right and two things which went wrong.
So let's start from something which is positive. Um, I personally think that there's a lot of talk these days. A lot of our top political leadership talks about the fact that there are encroachers which are there in our house, and we need to get rid of them, right? But how we get to get rid of them is something which I'm not getting into, because that's military, that's diplomacy. But the fact is that how many of us really know what constitutes Pakistan occupied Kashmir? All over the world, the people talk about Indian occupied Kashmir. Many of places I've heard, when I go out, people talk about Indian occupied Kashmir. And here we are talking about Pakistan occupied Kashmir. How much does one know about Hunza, Nagar, Mirpur, Punj? What is the society which is in existence there? What's the kind of economy which is in existence there? What is the politics in Gilgit? So we don't know. There is no talk about it. There is no course in contemporary history in our country which teaches that. I think there is a very, very strong, imminent need for a awareness program amongst our younger generation to know what the Pakistan occupied Kashmir is, to be sensitive about the fact that it is our part and it got taken away by. The second question, which of course has become so stereotyped now, is the whole idea of a two-nation theory. And having sort of perpetrated this kind of a thing since the time the Britishers were there and then they had to leave, it was actually a British doctrine. If you see how the British viewed the Hindu-Muslim relations, it is exactly the same. It is nothing that, the Jinnah was really not the progenitor. They just developed it and gave it to Jinnah. At the right time, you take it now, and now you build it up. I mean, the Muslim League was not for Indian freedom struggle. These guys never went to jail. They were for partition, and they got it because the Britishers wanted it. So that is something, again, is a kind of an awareness. What were the intended consequences of partition? Partition, no one talks about that it would have been perhaps better to have a civil war than to have a partition. I mean, what is the use of being secular when you are actually being perceived because of various factors as a Hindu party, and you don't even resist partition? On the 3rd of June 1947, you tamely agree. So what is the point of your secularism as far as Congress is concerned? This is the third question. So the third thing is that the younger generation should question, should actually be incisive while you read, think, question, research. On the other hand, I personally feel that Kashmir, the government of India had decided for long that Kashmir is not going to go with Pakistan. Patel and Gandhi were in complete sync on Kashmir. There was no difference between Patel and Gandhi as far as Kak was concerned, who was considered very important during the days prior to partition. I mean, he got removed on the 11th of August 1947. So both Patel and Nehru were of the same view about Kak. But Kak, again, is another person who's been not studied well. His role's not been studied. We consider him to be pro-Pakistan, which he was not. So, you know, even in our scheme of things, when we look at our top leadership, there were shades of gray. There's nothing which is black and white. There is nothing which is black and white, frankly speaking. So the more you sort of try and you know, and try and clear the cobwebs, the better it is for us to interpret that period of history.
Well, that's been a fascinating exposition about the forgotten part of Kashmir. So I'll open it now for a question and answer session from the audience there, and we'll take it from there.
Just take it. My question to Raghvan sir.
Sir,
You,
sir, please
had-
introduce yourself.
I'm Uday Sinha from Bhopal. Sir, you have visited Balochistan. We have a lot of interest in Balochistan, part of Pakistan, their mainland, because we want to know the exact. I mean, in your perspective, their Balochistan is boiling today. Their perspective about Pakistan, their mainland, their ethnicity in particular, and their idea about Pakistan, sir, please.
तो उसकी हिस्ट्री तो आपको पता ही होगी, इन द सेंस कि उसका जो 80% हिस्सा है वो कलत का हिस्सा होता था, और जो खान साहब थे वो 15 अगस्त को जो है वो उन्होंने अपनी इंडिपेंडेंस जो है वो करार दी थी और खुतबा पढ़वाया था अपने नाम से, अपनी जामा मस्जिद से। और उसके बाद जिन्ना साहब ने भी जो है वो कहा कि साहब ये इंडिपेंडेंट रहेंगे। इसके बाद ब्रिटेन से आया एक डायरेक्टिव कि नहीं साहब ऐसे नहीं हो सकता है, तो सब लोग सुधर गए, माउंटबैटन साहब भी सुधर गए, जिन्ना साहब भी सुधर गए, और उसके बाद जो है इन लोगों को काफ़ी जिल्लत सहनी पड़ी। और ये जो उसी समय से जो रेजिस्टेंस मूवमेंट जो शुरू हुआ, अरे भाई जब ईस्ट पाकिस्तान बन सकता है तो हमें ये क्या कहने की ज़रूरत है कि वो डायरेक्टली हमसे कनेक्टेड नहीं है, इसलिए हम जो है एक ट्रेड रिप्रेजेंटेटिव नहीं रखेंगे। हमने कुछ फाइलें पढ़ी हैं एमए की, जिसमें ये लिखा हुआ है कि हम ट्रेड रिप्रेजेंटेटिव भी रखेंगे तो प्रॉब्लम हो जाएगी, क्योंकि इसके बाद जो है फिर पाकिस्तान जो है वो हैदराबाद में अपना ट्रेड रिप्रेजेंटेटिव भेज देगा। सो आई मीन उस समय हम लोग भी सीख रहे थे और गलतियां की, तो पाकिस्तान बनने का जो है वो कोई भी जो है औचित्य मुझे नहीं समझ में आता, क्योंकि बलूचिस्तान जो था वो पाकिस्तान के साथ नहीं जाना चाहता था, नॉर्थ वेस्ट फ्रंटियर प्रोविंस नहीं जाना चाहता था, यूनियनिस्ट पार्टी जो थी वो मार्च के महीने तक थी 1947 पंजाब में, और फजलुल हक और जो दूसरे लोग थे ईस्ट बंगाल में वो लोग थे, तो और ऊपर का जो हिस्सा था जम्मू कश्मीर का वो तो इन एनी केस इंडिया के साथ एक्सीड कर गया था। तो पाकिस्तान को तो बनाया गया, और एक होता है मतलब उस समय तो और होगा क्योंकि गोरे हमारे बॉस थे, और 1947 के बाद मान लीजिए अगर वो ऑफिशियल्स भी थे तो एक जो बॉस और ऑफिशियल का जो हिस्सा रिश्ता होता है वो बरकरार काफ़ी दिनों तक रह गया था, क्योंकि बोथ इन पाकिस्तान एज ऑल्सो इन इंडिया यू सी द सेम सेट ऑफ पीपल रिमेन, कोई यहाँ चला गया कोई वहाँ चला गया, बट वो सब वहीं के वहीं रह गए, और उनको तो जाना पड़ रहा था ना हमारे देश से, अंदर से तो वो एकदम ही मतलब कुक थे, तो जितना हार्म करना था उन्होंने किया, हम लोग तो गए, यही स्टोरी।
Thank you. Mr. Singh and Ambassador, uh, I have, you want me to stand up? Okay, my name is, no, that's okay. My old legs. So, it's a fascinating theme and topic that you've discussed. Question now is of the future. As you rightly said, there was no cause for it to be created. But there are now a lot of theories and expectations of balkanization of Pakistan, which very distinct units as you described. A, do you think in the next decade or so that balkanization is likely to happen, including POK perhaps returning, which a lot of political leaders feel should happen? And B, is that something that India should hope for? Would that be in India's strategic interest to see balkanization on the Western Front?
You know what? I'll tell you. There are two answers. One is that whenever we as people who are, who are into national strategic thinking, policy making, etc., etc. Whenever we get together and I happen to sort of be present there and listening to some people and all. If wishes were horses, Pakistan would have been balkanized 80 years ago. I mean, it's not yet, can't be P47. That's just a way of saying it. So it's not going to get balkanized. It's not going to get balkanized because since its inception, you see, the Americans have been actually saying in no uncertain terms that we are going to back these guys. And they are going to back these guys. And so therefore to think that you will be able to do that, we ourselves will then have to be very, very proactive. And obviously if we are proactive, we will come into conflict with all the powers that be. But maybe, over a period of time when we have that strength and heft to do that, we should do it. So that's one. Secondly, it also extends to China. We also keep on thinking that, things will happen to China and then China's development craft will start coming down. You see, if wishes were horses, we would all ride them, but that's not how it is.
Sir.
कंटिन्यूएशन में मैं आपसे कुछ पूछना चाहता हूँ और मैं ये जानना चाहता हूँ कि जैसे कि अभी आपने बताया भी कि बलूचिस्तान कलात का एक एरिया और वहाँ पर जो है कबायली सिस्टम जो है वो एग्जिस्ट कर रहा है अभी भी। आपको लगता है कि ये हाँ वो उससे अलग है, लेकिन फिर भी अभी बहुत सारे अपने अपने नवाब हैं, अपने अपने कबाइलों का जो है होल्ड रखते हैं वो। जिस तरीके से यूनिफिकेशन हमारा 47 और उसके बाद में हुआ था, पटेल साहब ने हमारी जो टेरिटरीज़ को जिस तरीके से एक किया था, आपको लगता है कि वो कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी अभी बलूचिस्तान में है, या ऐसी कुछ बनेगा कि सब लोग एक ही पेज पर आ पाए, और ये जो फ्रीडम स्ट्रगल इस समय चल रहा है वो कंक्लूड हो पाए किसी तरीके से इन अ पॉजिटिव वे?
अब मुझे तो नहीं मालूम कि जो नेबरहुड हमारा है उसमें तो बलूचिस्तान है। एक दफ़े मुझे याद है 2015 या 14 की बात है, लाल किले से प्रधानमंत्री जी ने भी बलूचिस्तान का जिक्र किया था उस समय। तो हमारी जो एक प्रो फीलिंग्स हैं उनके लिए फॉर द मूवमेंट, वो तो ज़रूर हैं, बट हमारा कितना इन्वॉल्वमेंट है नहीं है इसके बारे में तो मैं नहीं बता सकता, बिकॉज आई एम नॉट प्रीवी टू इट, आई विल नेवर बी प्रीवी टू इट, तो वो नहीं बता सकता। लेकिन दो चीज़ें जो हैं वो एक तो ये हैं कि एक दफ़े मुझे याद आता है यूनाइटेड नेशंस में जब ये डिबेट चल रही थी तो नेहरू जी बड़े अपसेट थे। तो बेल्जियन जो वहाँ का जो यहाँ नुमाइंदा था, सफ़ीर था, वो उनसे बात कर रहा था, और वहाँ पे वो पहले प्रेसिडेंट थे बेल्जियन, जो सबसे पहले बने, हर महीने चेंज होते थे। उसके बाद एक कनेडियन आ गया, तो जब कनेडियन आया तो भी उसको रखा, और एक दफ़े हुआ कि नहीं साहब उसको कहीं और जाना पड़ेगा किसी और कॉन्फ्रेंस के लिए, तो भड़कम मच गई ब्रिटिशर्स और अमेरिकन को, नहीं साहब उसको वापस बुलाइए। वो इतना बड़ा मतलब सपोर्टर था अमेरिकन का और ब्रिटिश का। तो उसी परिप्रेक्ष्य में नेहरू जी उनके सफ़ीर को यहाँ के से पूछ रहे थे, तो उन्हीं के सफ़ीर ने कहा कि साहब पाकिस्तान जो है इज रेडी टू प्रोस्टिट्यूट इटसेल्फ। So if Pakistan is ready to prostitute itself, people will pay and get Pakistan. So that is what is happening with Pakistan. You see, either Chinese will pay and get Pakistan, or either the Americans will pay and get Pakistan, or both at the same time. Yes. तो
I
बड़ा मुश्किल है उसमें, किसी दूसरे कंट्री को कुछ और करना बड़ा मुश्किल हो जाता
मेरा मेरा नाम आशा जैन है और सवाल है कि मान हैव बिकम हॉर्सेस, मान लीजिए विशेष हेल्प हमारा क्या क्या नुकसान होगा और क्या क्या फायदा होगा आपकी नज़र से? ओ गलत। अगर विशेष बिकम हॉर्सेस और ये सब पाकिस्तान वगैरह, हेलो, पाकिस्तान और ये सब हमसे मिल जाएं तो हमारे क्या क्या, हाँ, मतलब ये ऐसे होगा नहीं, लेकिन अगर होता है तो हमारे क्या क्या नुकसान होंगे और क्या फ़ायदा होगा?
है। नुकसान करने के लिए ही तो विभाजन किया था ब्रिटिशर्स और अमेरिकन ने,
मिलने के बाद
किया
क्या
था ना।
होगा?
तो अब हम लोग ये सोचते हैं, और काफ़ी लोगों का सोचना है, अभी भी सोचना है, कि भाई अगर सिर में दर्द हो रहा है तो साला सिर ही को काट के अलग कर दो, जब सिर नहीं रहेगा तो दर्द कहाँ से होगा। मैं ये नहीं सोचता, भाई ठीक है, अगर आप जो है अफगानिस्तान से लेके बर्मा तक जो है अगर एक कंट्री रहते तो प्रॉब्लम्स होती। अरे भाई पहले भी तो थी, 1947 के पहले थी ना। ऐसा क्या हुआ 1947 के 7-8 साल पहले कि रहना दुर्भर हो गया? ये सब जो सेपरेट इलेक्टोरेट, ये सब जो हिंदू डोमिनेशन ओवर द मुस्लिम्स, ये सब ब्रिटिश की दी हुई थियोरी थी। और जब एक कम्युनल कन्फ्लैग्रेशन होता है तो उसमें अगर आप लोगों को साथ लेके चलना चाहें, दैट बिकम्स अ मेजर मेजर चैलेंज। और अरे जो भी नुकसान होगा फायदा उससे कहीं ज़्यादा होगा, लेकिन ये होने वाला नहीं है। one should be realistic about it. अब आजकल वो ज़माने गए जब nations would be formed and reformed. उनके phases होते हैं, अभी वो phase नहीं दिखता.
My name is Upendra Verma, sir. My question is that with your very background of Kashmir issue, do you have any idea how to resolve this problem? Is there any ray of hope or any way you think that it's possible to do so?
When the problem came up, on day one when the problem came up, everyone said कि भाई इसको जहाँ हिंदू हैं वो हिंदुओं का एरिया हो जाएगा, जहाँ मुसलमान हैं वो मुसलमानों का एरिया हो जाएगा, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं थी. गिलगिट में भी मुसलमान थे, वो उनका एरिया हो जाएगा. जो पाकिस्तान ऑक्यूपाइड कश्मीर है वो है. प्रॉब्लम हो गई वैली की. वैली में भी उन्होंने उसको सॉर्ट आउट करने की कोशिश की, ये सोच के कि भाई वहाँ ओवरवेलमिंगली मुस्लिम पॉपुलेशन है तो वो पाकिस्तान के खेमे में चला जाएगा.
तुम क्या
वो
करोगे
नहीं
अगर हम
हुआ.
पूछ लेंगे तो?
तो इसलिए जो है वो प्रॉब्लम फेस्टर कर रही है, सिर्फ वैली के चक्कर में प्रॉब्लम फेस्टर कर रही है. और देखिए, when I said national interest is national interest, why was Kashmir important for us? Kashmir was important for us because that was one place where the three empires once upon a time had met, and it was a very strategically important swathe of territory. And I'm sure Nehru knew it because he was a man with international vision, and was India's foreign minister before independence. He was a foreign member of the Viceroy's Executive Council in the interim. कहने का मतलब ये है कि the way the Chinese have managed their problem in Xinjiang and managed their problem in Tibet, मैं उस पर ज़्यादा कुछ नहीं कहना चाहूँगा, सिर्फ इतना ही कह के छोड़ दूँगा कि they have not managed it looking through the prism of a two-nation theory. It's been something other than that, and they have managed it in their national interest very well. We should take some lessons from them.
Hello. Namaskar and good evening to all of you. My name is Ajita Bajpayee Pandey and I live in Bhopal. Now, the question is slightly rambling, right? We've been talking about two-nation theory extensively. Time and again it has been mentioned. Are we aware that in 1905, when the Britishers bifurcated Bengal into East and West Bengal on religious lines, that was the starting point. And it gave a major fillip to the national movement, ki hum ek hain, we are united. Number two, when the country was on the cusp of getting independence, we have also heard you talk about Northwest Frontier Province, where Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan told Mahatma Gandhi, said to Mahatma Gandhi, it is in public records, कि गांधी जी, महात्मा जी, आप आइए वहाँ, हम असेंबली का सेशन बुलाएंगे, उसी दिन इंडिया को सीड करेंगे. We will become a part of India. You've talked about Baluchistan also. तो हुआ क्या? हुआ ये कि गांधी जी was assassinated. He was prevented from going to Pakistan. Noakhali. And last point, more contemporary. My colleague asked कि future में क्या होगा? Mrs. Jain, Mrs. Asha Jain asked. Future में क्या होगा? It is politically very risky because अगर पाकिस्तान नहीं बना होता तो Muslims would not have been a minority.
तो एक जहाँ तक याद आता है उसको एक बाली साहब थे. I think he was he a speaker in the Northwest Frontier Province? I think he was speaker in the Northwest Frontier Province. वो बचा के आ गए किसी तरीके से दिल्ली में, और दिल्ली में आके फिर पटेल साहब से मिले, और पटेल साहब को उन्होंने जो है एक नोट बना के दिया. वो नोट भी जो था वो कुछ उसी लाइन पे था जो आपने अभी कहा कि भाई हम लोग जो है वो why are we not taking help of Afghanistan, because Afghanistan उस समय जो है वो भी मेरी इस किताब में है कि अफ़गानिस्तान के जो लोग थे वो मिल रहे थे हमारे लोगों से, यूनाइटेड नेशंस में भी मिल रहे थे और दिल्ली में भी खबर भिजवा रहे थे कि साहब ऐसा है कि हम लोग मिल के काम करते हैं। पाकिस्तान के साथ तो उनकी बन नहीं रही थी। एज लॉन्ग एज NWFP का जो वो इलाका था अगर हम उनको दे दें या उनकी सहायता करें तो उनको इसमें कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं थी कि दे वुड टेक द लीड। और वहाँ एक फ़कीर ऑफ ईपी थे उस समय, वो बार बार पूछ रहे थे कि साहब हम जो है वो आक्रमण करना चाहते हैं इन वज़ीरिस्तान एंड ऑल दोज एरियाज़, आप हमें आर्म्स दीजिए, ये दीजिए। खैर उस समय एक सर गाइल स्क्वायर हुआ करते थे हु यूज्ड टू बी द इंडियन नुमाइंदा देयर, and he was a British. The first thing he did was to completely nix this whole initiative, and in the United Nations, this thing was also not allowed to come up. So the Britishers and the Americans, or rather the Anglo-American bloc, everywhere saw to it कि हम जो भी चाहें उसको वो स्टाइमाई कर देते, और वो कर इसलिए भी देते थे क्योंकि उनकी पहुंच ज़्यादा थी। उनके पास जो थे वो मतलब they had far more resources than a nation state like India had. So that was the problem. And then we had taken this whole thing of neutralism, which the Pakistanis had not. They just sort of. But पाकिस्तान जाना चाहता था। हिंदू मुस्लिम प्रॉब्लम जो हो रही थी उस पे पाकिस्तान यूनाइटेड नेशंस जाना चाहता था। The British actually stopped them from going to the United Nations and led India into it.
सर मैं दिनेश हूँ, यूएन वार्ता यूएनआई से। मैं सर ये यूएनआई से यूनिवार्ता से हूँ, मैं दिनेश भोपाल से। सर मैं ये जानना चाह रहा हूँ कि जो वैश्विक परिस्थितियाँ बनी हैं, जो पूर्वी पाकिस्तान था, बांग्लादेश, इधर बलूचिस्तान, पश्चिमी पाकिस्तान में, और भारत में भी इस तरह की बातें उठ रही हैं जो मौजूदा सरकार या राजनीति है, और नेहरू जी को हम जो भी है क्रिटिसाइज़ करने की कोशिश करते हैं। तो ये जो पूरा परिदृश्य बन रहा है जिस तरह से, ऐसा कहा जाने लगा कि भारत में ही अब ऐसा एक और टुकड़ा हो जाएगा या इस तरह का, तो आपको क्या लग रहा है कि जिस तरह की राजनीति हो रही है पूरे विश्व परिदृश्य में या भारत की स्थिति में, तो क्या लग रहा है कि ऐसी परिस्थितियाँ कभी बनेंगी जिस तरह की 1947 में बनी?
1947 में जो हमारा स्टेट था, फॉर्चुनेटली जो आज जो हमारी स्थिति है वो कहीं ज़्यादा मजबूत है। तो ये जो फिसिपरस टेंडेंसीज़ की आप जिसकी बात कर रहे हो, आई थिंक दैट डूम्सडे सिनारियो is not going to fructify. It's not even realistic to think.
I think on that note, we will call it a day because it's now time for the next session. So thank you, Raghvendra, because he ended on a good note that vociferous tendencies are not going to succeed, and we leave it on that note. Thank you very much for this engaging discussion.
I think the conversation offered a very clear-eyed examination of history, particularly. A strong round of applause once again for Raghvendra Singh and Ambassador Syed Akbaruddin for their insights. To honor our distinguished guest, I would now like to invite Reema Huja, a founding member of Society for Culture and Environment, to kindly join us on stage and present a token of our gratitude. This is not merely a memento. We are privileged to share with you a genuine piece of our history. This is a special BLF 2026 memento. The legendary Padma Shri Durgabai created this artwork specifically for BLF. It depicts little Goraiya, a story of devotion. A tiny bird loved by Bhangsu is transformed by tribal god Burradev into a beautiful maiden, bringing joy to him and struggling family. Thank you to our speakers for sharing knowledge and perspectives. Thank you.